So good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Tuesday, it's I think it's the 5th of September, jumping into our last quarter of the year for 2017. I've got a co-host with me today, or a hostess, Bernadette McBurney, zooming in from San Francisco. And today we wanted to discuss together the important role and business tool that we have available as Nikan consultants of the ABC. This is a really fundamental resource that we have that I think we could use far more than we currently do. So we're going to have a brief discussion today on how we can utilize these better and serve our business better, and also, of course, our potential customers or consultants that we're working with too. So I'm going to pass the time over to Bernadette to kick the discussion off, and we'll go from there. So Bernadette, welcome to the call.
Thank you, everybody. You know, it's what the topic that we're discussing today is just so important. And unfortunately, I think sometimes misunderstood, misused, and that's why I think it's important that we do that. What is the ABC? A lot of time, I remember when I started, ABC seemed like, a foreign thing to do. It's a strange thing to do. And actually, I think when we understand what is the purpose, why the ABC, how to do it, and for what purpose, for what intention, then it becomes a very simple, easy tool to use. And it's very important to understand that. So why do we do the ABC? The ABC is really to provide the person we're talking to additional information. It's not something that we do to the person, it's something that we do for the person. And I think that's very important. It's always about helping them. And the ABC is about providing additional information, whether it's about the product, whether it's about our opportunity, whatever topic we're talking about. And one of the challenges, I believe, is that quite often, particularly if we've been in Nikan for a bit, or if we have been, or if we are someone who's very independent in our current business or current profession, we tend to think, I know this, I can do this on my own. And this is really not the issue. It's not about whether or not we have the answer. It's whether it's about introducing the third party, because every time that we bring we talk to a new person, a new team member, I always say to my team, you want them at the end of the conversation to say to you, I can do this. And the moment they say, I can do this, then they will see themselves potentially coming on board, joining you, because it's not complicated. But the moment they say, that's great, you know your stuff, but frankly, there's no way I can repeat what you just said, we've lost it. We've lost it. And that's when the recruiting slows down. So very important to understand, why do we do the ABC? Provide additional information, validation, a way to show people that they can do what we're asking them to do. Because particularly when we start the process with a prospect, at the end, when some of them say, I want to do this with you, they will ask very often, so what do I do? Then we want to be able to say, well, remember when I contacted you, this is what we did. And then I asked you to watch, to look at some information. I introduced you to some partners we talked about, and this is exactly what we're going to do. Now I'm bringing them back to their experience. And they found that it was simple and an easy process. And now they say, oh yeah, all right. Now they get it. They understand it. So it's not a complicated system, procedure, process that we're putting them in front. Because they have that simple, enjoyable, very important, it has to be an enjoyable process as well. So that is important. Ben, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, just to reiterate what Bernadette has said, is what I would suggest each of us do is have in our minds that whatever we are doing, whenever we are interacting with our prospects or with our business partners in our team, we are always training. Training doesn't always take place exclusively in a formal environment. Most training, in fact, some of the most effective, takes place in the informal settings. So if we have in our mind that we are always in an attitude of training, that means when I'm speaking to my prospect and we do the ABC, I'm doing it because I'm knowing in my mind that should they join, the first thing I'm going to do is refer them back to this experience, just like Bernadette said. And we can simply say, what do you do? What did you see me do? What has been your experience? Because whether we do that deliberately or not, what we will find is people will copy what they have experienced. Yeah, that's always going to be the way. And unfortunately, people have a tendency to copy our bad habits more than our good habits. Yeah. So we need to be quite deliberate and make sure that what we're doing here is always demonstrating and we are always training, even if they're not yet in our business. I think that's really important. So just want to reiterate that, Bernadette, because that's really just bang on.
Yeah, and that's, I remember also one of the first training I attended, it was Platinum speaking, and he said to the group, you know, we duplicate ourselves for the better or the worse. So be careful of what it is that you do. That stuck with me since then. You know, I've always, I said, remember, you duplicate yourself for the better or the worse. Which one do you want to duplicate? What are the habits that I want to duplicate? And ABC is without a doubt one of them.
Yeah.
Because if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it.
That's right. So someone once said to me, if everyone in your business behaved and acted like you do, would business move forward or would it move backwards? That's really interesting, isn't it? What would happen to your business if everyone treated it exactly the way that you do? And an ABC, I think, is a great way to demonstrate that we're treating our business and our team members with respect and with a sense of value, because this really is a value add resource that we've got here.
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the challenges that I found a lot of time is how do we introduce the ABC? We know a lot of time what I see in the field, we know that we should be doing it. It has value, but we don't know how to. And that I think is a little bit as well of what we need to understand better. So it's not, first of all, I think it's our confidence. When we know that with confidence that this is to the benefit of the person we're talking to, and not for a personal, gain, that already is very important. The ABC is for the benefit of the person we're talking to, whoever that is. Another thing I want to mention as well that I see too often happen, a lot of time I see the field saying, thinking that the ABC is when we talk to a prospect only. And actually the ABC is a tool we use all along in our journey with Nikken. With a prospect, a new team member, somebody who's been around for a bit. I mean, we never end using the ABC because every time that we're at a certain stage, then we need to still someone else to validate what we're saying because there's new skills to learn. So very important.
Yeah, Michelle Kowalczuk just raised a really good point. The ABC takes the feeling of the sale out of the meeting. And I think that's really, really good. I think one thing that I've noticed as well is sometimes people maybe pigeonhole the ABC and think it is for the formal presentation only of the business. And when they think that's really, when someone's ready to make a decision, that we have a formal structured ABC as the key catalyst. It certainly plays an important part there, don't get me wrong. And I do ABCs on a weekly basis where they are formal business opportunity presentations. But at the same time, these ABCs can be little snippets of time that can be throughout the person's experience as you are meeting with them and helping them to make a decision. It's wonderful to say, that's a great question that you've got there. Let me just pull in a friend of mine who might have a better way of explaining it than I do. There's an experience that I shared. I think I've shared this probably at least 2 or 3 times, but it's always worth repeating. I saw an example once of a new prospect. Their sponsor was a diamond distributor, someone that was well established in the business, someone that had experience and was very well educated in the context of the business as well. their new prospect had a question. They wanted to know the answer regarding a particular detail around the product. And they of course, they reached out to their sponsor. The sponsor turned around and said, "That's a great question. I'm afraid I don't have the answer for that right now. However, I think I know someone that might. Bear with me, stay on the line." And he called his upline. And his upline was also a diamond. And he reaches out to her and he says, "I've got this new business partner. They've just joined. They're a week old in the business. They've got this question. I was just wondering if you knew the answer." And she goes, "Oh, that's a great question. I don't have the answer to that right now. Bear with me 1 second. Stay on the line. I'm going to call someone." And she called her upline. Again, another diamond. Sometimes these chains get compressed, don't they? And of course, they asked the question, and this person gave the answer. And when they got off the phone call, the original sponsor turned to me and said, "Do you think that I didn't have the answer to that question?" He said, "Of course I did." He says, "But what I was doing was teaching a critical point, that this new person who's brand new in the team, that doesn't know anyone yet outside of me, now suddenly recognizes that, one, they don't need to have all the answers to all the questions," which is wonderfully reassuring. Like Bernadette said, we can be confidently assured that we don't need to have all the answers. The other thing, of course, was it was a great way to introduce them to all of their upline and demonstrate that they are a part of a team. One of the great benefits that I see in doing ABCs, and it's something that I always repeat, I think on every ABC that I've done, I've always emphasized this, that when you join NICAN, that we are a part of your team, that this dialogue that we're having isn't a one-time deal. That when you join NICAN, I'm a part of your team. It's not just your sponsor. And I always use this chance, of course, to validate, to endorse, to edify the sponsor as well. And this is one of the primary reasons also of the ABC. It's not just to show them their team, not just to show them a simple way of doing it, but it's also a chance for someone else to edify the sponsor back to them so that they can have a tighter relationship and they can have more confidence that when I give instruction to my downline, they're going to respond because I've been edified to them and they've got greater confidence in me as a leader as well. So
it's just so great and so important what you're saying, Ben. And the other thing as well is when we do ABCs, we are showing people that it's not only the support system, but actually doing the ABC also depends on who you want to do it. Sometimes I do ABCs with customer and prospective customer, because when they hear from someone else who's not in NICAN, it's even more powerful. Yeah. Or connect a brand new team member with another brand new team member, or somebody who's brand new, and we can talk about the kind of support they receive, the kind of result they receive. Because a lot of time when we've been around for a bit, people may think or may say to you out loud, "Yeah, but you've been around, you know this, so of course you know how to do this." Well, one of the best ways to take that away is using the ABC.
Yeah. Can I jump in just to say there's a couple of points that have come up in the chat, and I'd like to address these because these are pretty good. I'm going to start backwards first. Nancy, do you want to unmute your line, please, for just a second? You've just asked a question. So can I ask you to share that question with us and we'll get that answered?
Yeah, I am in full gear of this is a perfect topic. I just was talking to my new little team group about this. And I want them to know that not only can they use me, and I'm there, pretty much all the time, but I'm not the only person to help. And I remember your conversation, Ben, I don't know, 3-4 weeks ago, the one you kind of got cut off on and didn't get to get recorded was probably one of the best ones I thought ever, because you brought up the point that it's not just you, Ben, that will support me, but there's a lot of great leaders out there that I can call on. And I thought that really just filled me with hope. And there are areas where we as individuals maybe aren't as strong. And so we want to tap into people that we think are perfect for that point. And so how best to do that if they're not our upline? Granted, our upline is usually pretty willing to help, but maybe they're busy, maybe they can't do it. So how best to tap other leaders?
The answer is wonderfully simple, Nancy. We simply ask. The great thing is all of the active leaders are typically all active on Facebook, which means if you don't have their phone numbers or their immediate contact details, it's very simple to reach out to them on Messenger, on Facebook, ask the question. One of the great privileges that we enjoy in NECAN is that whether you're upline, downline, or crossline, everyone is willing to help. I deliberately, in my experience in network marketing, there has often been politics that can be experienced in the field, where people will stick with one line only and what have you. In NECAN, we don't have that problem. I think that's wonderful. So I would say it's simply a matter of being willing to ask the question. Please, please, if there is any message that comes across loud and clear on the call today, it's please don't be afraid to ask. Yeah. And to that point, I want to ask if Ruth Lowe, perhaps if you could unmute your line for just a second. I hope that answers the question, Nancy. It's really simple. Just ask. Just do it. Just do it. And I would be very, very surprised if you ever got rejected. In fact, I've never heard of anyone get rejected. Yeah. And
well, that's true. Flat out rejection isn't the answer that I've received, but just non-response is. So I'm just more curious about that one.
Yeah. Well, if that's the case, then maybe a little bit of persistence and asking around, or maybe again, if it's someone that you don't know very well, maybe if you go to the upline that you do know, and then you arrange that as your own ABC, and you can say to your upline, I would really like this person to help me on this particular situation. Could you please provide me a strong introduction?
Perfect.
And I think that could be a good way to do it, so that they can then say, hey, look, I've worked with this person. I know them really well. They're fantastic. If you could just help them out with this, it would be great. Let's have a conversation. And that will help if someone is feeling, maybe I don't have the rapport or the connection that that could help facilitate that quicker response.
Thanks.
So,
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So Ruth, I'll just ask you to unmute your line for just a second. You said you used to be afraid of doing ABCs because you didn't want to bother someone. Tell us a little bit about that and what you've just learned.
So I would hesitate to call somebody, especially like you, Ben, to ask to do a 3A because you're overseas and you have a family of 7, and I know how busy you are, or even calling my own royals because I know they're busy. And even though I know you're willing to do it, I just always didn't want to impose on somebody. And when this new person signed up and wanted information on the European market, I'm like, I need to WhatsApp them. So I just did it, and I was concerned, and I thought, okay, if Ben doesn't have time, that's okay. But then you responded so quickly, and we set it up almost immediately within the next day or two. It was an incredible experience. I learned so much from it, and I think I just was in shock all that I learned, because I was like, I should be doing this more often. So it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot, and now I feel like because I've done that with her, now she knows what to do when she has new people. Because I said, we can just do a 3-way, just like what we just did then. And so that set the pace and the tone for me, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh, good. I'm thrilled. And I'm confident that that's going to be one of the learning curves for most people, that when they get off the ABC, they think to themselves, I should do more of these. Yeah. And if that's the takeaway, what a great takeaway to have. Yeah.
One thing that I'd like to add, Ben, is let's watch our language as well when we talk to people. Because when we talk to somebody who's brand new, ABC, what's that? 3-way call, what's that? The inner reaction is, what are you trying to do with me? So we really need to say, let's talk to my friends or to my partner. That's a great question. Let's reach out to someone else. Let's use words that anybody can understand. Because it's a very awkward feeling.
No, you're absolutely right. And she is not new to network marketing, but I just said I would really love to connect you to this amazing gentleman in Europe. And I just really think he can answer a lot of your questions on the European market.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then afterwards you say, what we did is actually in our language, this is what we call an ABC and so on. But not to introduce it as such, because otherwise it will be just really make people very uncomfortable. So our language is very important as well.
Yeah, it helps it feel a little bit more informal, a little bit more natural, and like it was meant, like Michelle mentioned earlier, not so salesy, which is nice. Mm-hmm. Now, a number of people are asking the question, what are the best ways to ABC? I think I gave one of the answers there. So I think, first of all, I'm just reading out from the notes here. Barbara Richmond is suggesting that one of the ways to find out if you've got an ideal time is by using WhatsApp for an immediate willing consultant. I think that's a great point, Barb. If we can be connected on WhatsApp with our team members, we can get very quick responses. It's interesting that email now is becoming less and less the communication tool, isn't it? And I find I use email much less now. I use WhatsApp a lot, Facebook Messenger a lot. And whilst this is technically it's a smartphone, I very rarely use it as a phone. I use it for all these other things. So what are the ways that we can do an ABC? We can do it in person, of course, if we're in close proximity. But if we are not, if we are transatlantic, as an extreme example, then connecting, inviting, arranging, and planning the meetings can be done via WhatsApp. It can be done via email. It can be done via Skype. It can be done via Facebook Messenger. There are a host of different ways, or of course, the traditional phone call. Ironic that comes out last. And likewise, the meeting can be done via Skype, via Facebook, via Zoom. There are a number of different ways that can be done. The great thing is there is so much choice now, and it makes it so much more simple to be able to reach out, set an appointment, and have a connection where all three of you can be meeting face-to-face virtually, and have that interaction and build that rapport, and it can be done very, very simply. So again, I think some of the key messages that are coming out today, please don't be afraid to ask. Recognize that upline, downline, crossline are all willing and available if we are confident enough to ask. If you don't have the relationship yet, what do? Then we have our own internal ABC where we reach out to our upline and ask them to make an introduction. I think we've got a tight enough team now where we would probably only be 1 or 2 links away from someone that knows the other person very well. The other thing, of course, these things are to be informal, and they happen, as Bernadette said, all the way through the process, from prior to signing up as a consultant, to being a brand new consultant, being introduced to the team, introducing them to other brand new consultants. I love that example that Bernadette gave, where you've got a new consultant in your team, and you plug them in with another new consultant who can share their experience of all of a month. And that can be quite invigorating and exciting too. And of course, it goes all the way up the chain. If you've been in the business for decades, from time to time, you might want to have an ABC and come in with a couple of other people in your team to have discussions where you might need to have a concern resolved or some strategies put together in place, whatever it might be. The ABC is a very versatile tool that can be used in a few minutes, in an informal catch-up, in a formal setting, for a new person or for an experienced person. Really, really versatile there.
Now, one more thing I'd like to add, Ben, in terms of the ABC, because here we're talking about connecting one person to the other. There's many, many forms of ABC. There's the event, there's a webinar, there's a recording, there's lots of things. And for those of us who may find themselves maybe geographically isolated, that's one thing. It's important to understand, not to think, oh, I'm on my own here, or I don't know who, then I can't really do that. That is actually what we put in our mind is what's going to create our behavior. If we think that way, then we're stuck. So it's really important to understand all the tools that are available that we can use for ABC. So maybe if you don't have access to a lot of people right from the beginning, use those other tools, a quick video testimonial and so on. Or you could, and then that gives you a little bit extra time to set up a live ABC conversation. But I think it's really important to understand there's many ways and forms to do that. And one more thing is when we introduce, what I like to do myself and what I teach the people who work with me is when we do an ABC is to do a proper introduction of the A. Sometimes they say, I'll let you now talk to Ben. Well, that's not a really good introduction, frankly. It doesn't give reason to the prospect or the team. Why should I listen to Ben? There needs to have a good edification, not over the top, because sometimes I see people, okay, come on, Let's tone it down. It doesn't need to be over the top, because if you do it over the top, it doesn't sound genuine. But not only that, it could be extremely intimidating. So just what the person needs to do. But it's important to really make an introduction that transfers trust and credibility. And because that is really important.
Yeah. And one thing to keep in mind as well. So we're going through now some of the finer details of how an ABC should be executed. And as Bernadette said, first thing that you do as you introduce the A, you want to edify them in an appropriate way, to give them credibility so that what they are sharing is recognized as valuable. What the A should always do for you when they're speaking is not just give the presentation, but also use that time to edify you. And I think that's really important as well. So that they, in the process, it's a little bit like passing a baton, isn't it? A relay, where you start off, you pass the baton to the expert, the A, and you say, these are authorized and a credible person to listen to, because they then take the authority and the ownership there. They then pass it back to you at the end of the call, so that by the time that call is finished, you are back empowered and authorized and equipped to do a great job moving forward, where you'll be listened to.
Open it. I think that's a really great point, Ben, as well. Because it is very important, because that also will give confidence to the person, your prospect or your team members, that they are in really good hands, which is what we want. It's all about building the leaders.
Yeah. And Nancy Clement-Carr, you've just raised a wonderful point. In the process of edifying the A, it's also good to edify the prospect. Let them know why you've arranged this call with someone that you value, because it's two people that you value and respect a lot. And I think that's really good when you can let them know that you've arranged this because you respect your guest, because you value their opinion, because you value what they bring to the table. That is a great way to set off a conversation where everyone becomes very open-minded, very open-hearted. There's a great deal of feel-good going on around the table, and that can really just facilitate a lot of good outcomes. So the edification, the word edify does mean to build up, to edify each other. All three people on the ABC should end up being edified by the time that call is finished. Excellent. Any last thoughts, Bernadette, before we wrap up?
Well, I think, it's very important is if you have never done ABC, then start with one. It's always the first one that is the hardest, because but when you start with one and then just know who, talk to the A a little bit more, but start with one. Once you've done one, then say that decide that you're going to do one with every person you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
And then once you've done it, then say, I've done it enough. It's important to ask ourselves, whether we're talking to a prospect or to a consultant, is what it is that I want to accomplish with that ABC. And then communicate that with the A, by the way. I think it's really important, because sometimes we go and we're not sure exactly why we've been asked, even though we can figure that out. It's really having a conversation with intention that is important.
Yeah.
And taking that first step and really going with that.
Yeah. I will often ask people, if they invite me to do an ABC with them, if they say, can you help me out and speak with this person with me? I will always ask, tell me about the person first. Yeah. Not before I say yes, before we have the meeting. Yeah. Tell me about this, the person. How do you know them? Where are they at in the process? What are some of their perspectives or ideas right now? What would you like me to do? What key messages would you like me to help reinforce to support you better? And I think just giving that little bit of a backdrop really helps the call go very, very well. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this call has been helpful for you. I hope it's encouraged you to do some ABCs this week. Please, again, have the courage to ask. And where do we start? I think that invitation and challenge from Bernadette is just perfect. Start with one. Start with a goal over the next week to have an ABC. Extend the invitation, ask the question, and let's see what happens as a consequence. Thank you all very much. I hope this has been of great help, and we'll speak to you again soon. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Bernadette.